We are live on ProLine TV, the Arlads Football Network, as we talk some SEC football here this evening. And this is, of course, our official Georgia Day at ProLine TV, as we interviewed Kevin Knight earlier today, talked about the Atlanta Falcons. That interview is already available here at ProLine TV. And now we're talking about college football, Georgia Bulldogs. And when we do that, Jed May joins us once again. He is recruiting analyst for UGAsports.com. And of course, now part of the Rivals and On3 network. How's it going, Jed?
Going good. Ready for another season to get started.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you doing this as always. This is, we're starting to get jacked up here now and all the camps are active. So SEC looking to, stop that 2-season streak of not winning a championship. And they're going to have a lot of good teams this year. That's for sure. This is a really, really competitive conference this year. I actually think it's even better than last year's because I think the depth is better. I think you've got that. And I think that actually what makes the SEC better than the Big Ten. Even though at the top of the conferences, I think they're very equal, but in the middle and even a little bit towards the bottom, man, the SEC is just loaded with even some strong, Missouri, Vanderbilt, teams like that, that Arkansas, that can have really good seasons.
Yeah. And I think you've got that tier of Alabama, LSU, I wouldn't say they're at I think Texas is kind of on the tier by itself, and maybe you want to put Georgia there, but then it's Georgia, it's Alabama, it's LSU. You could throw South Carolina in there if you wanted to. You could throw Florida in there if you wanted to. In Tennessee, if quarterback plays okay, they could
Oklahoma.
be there. Oklahoma, Auburn's got some talent that they want to put things together. There's a lot of schools. I think there's Ole Miss. We hadn't even talked about Ole Miss.
Yes.
They almost made the playoff. There's
Absolutely.
A&M. A&M's another one there.
A&M.
A home win away from going to the SEC championship game last year.
All those teams we just talked about could make the playoffs and make a run.
Sure. Yeah. There's I think a lot of them are in kind of prove it. Let's see what they look like on the field mode. But any one of them, you can make a case for any of them to get hot and end up in SEC championship, end up in the playoff. Any one of them. I don't know going into the year last year who would have expected A&M to be. Again, if they beat Texas at home, I don't know if that would have put them in the playoff, but they would have been
in the SEC championship game.
And South Carolina thought they should have been in at the end of last year. So, any one of those teams could be that team this year to maybe not necessarily be picked to win the league, and maybe not even end up winning the league later. But that team that comes out of relative obscurity to make a run later in the year.
I think what is going to separate those teams, and especially some of the ones that have the inexperienced quarterbacks like Georgia, the ones that are going to be throwing these quarterbacks out there, first time starting, they're the leaders now. And so which of those younger quarterbacks, are who is going to take that next step to be the next star quarterbacks of the SEC, and that's going to lead their team and so forth. And Georgia's got one of them with Gunnar Stockton. So what have you seen so far compared to last year to this year, which makes you believe that, Gunnar has, either evolved or, was there something in particular that he needed to improve upon in order for you to feel, or a lot of the Georgia fans to feel like, hey, you know what? We lost a pretty good quarterback, but Gunnar will be okay or be maybe just as valuable because of.
Yeah, I think it's the leadership, it's the intangible stuff, first of all, because that's something that Carson Beck didn't necessarily check all those boxes throughout the year last year. And you saw what Gunnar Stockton did in the SEC championship. Everybody played for him, rallied around him. So that, I think, purely from that standpoint is an upgrade. And the way I've looked at it this offseason is, would you say just purely off of talent, is Gunnar Stockton more talented than Carson Beck? Probably not. But is Stetson Bennett more naturally talented than Carson Beck?
Sure.
Not. And Georgia
Yeah.
won 2 national championships with him, and he had talent
Yeah.
around him. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. But I think if you're Georgia, what you're hoping with Gunnar Stockton is he does enough with the talent around him to get you to a championship. And I think he's capable of that. That Notre Dame game, it didn't go very well for Georgia, but he didn't play bad. You know, the offensive line played bad. The defense led up there toward the end. They had the special teams, without a kickoff return, that was 7 points. So I think there's things he's got to improve on. He's got to improve his footwork. He's got to get rid of the ball quicker, that kind of stuff. But I think from a leadership perspective, he's got that going for him.
Okay.
All the players on the team just love him, love playing for him. And he's just got to do enough with the pieces around them. And I've said this offseason too. Everybody wants to ask, what's Gunnar going to do? What's Gunnar going to look like? Georgia's got a lot, and we'll get into it, a lot of stuff they need to get better at if they're going to win a championship, no matter who your quarterback is. You got to run the ball better.
True.
You got to protect the quarterback better. You got to rush the passer. Your secondary didn't play up to its standard consistently last year necessarily. So a lot of other things besides Gunnar. He's the one that's get the headlines, but short answer to a longer answer, I think Georgia can win a championship
Sure.
with Gunnar Stockton at quarterback.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the new faces, starting with recruiting. And another, of course, dominating class, the 2025 class, with 4 5 stars based on Rivals on 3. Again, 4, 1 on offense and 3 on defense, and about 17 or so 4 stars, somewhere in that mix. Out of all of those top players, and 4 stars obviously do have a much better chance of contributing as true freshmen, who do you think does have a good chance of contributing? And we'll start first of all on offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Talon Taylor, and he's not a 5-star, but CJ Wiley too, because they're very talented receivers. Like, I think they are more ready coming in day one than Georgia receivers have been in the past couple years. Obviously, it is stacked in front of them, as you can see with the depth chart here, but injuries happen and
Sure,
stuff like that. And I think offensively, you can also maybe look at, Juan Gaston there at, where is he listed at? He's listed as left tackle, but he's a mountain of a human being. I saw him a few times last year in high school. And then we saw him at Georgia practice the other day, and he looks in a lot better shape already, but he's still like 6'8", 330, 340. Like, he's huge. So
did you notice where he was playing?
Do what?
Did you notice where he was playing?
It was like individual drills. It was
Okay.
hard to tell. He's a guy I think could play either one, guard or tackle. So, and again, it'll depend on injuries maybe and that kind of stuff. But
Gaston's the top freshman offensive lineman to keep an eye on then.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think in the past Georgia's done like, okay, they've got 3 tackles they feel comfortable in and they rotate them in and out. I don't necessarily think that'll be the case this year. I think this year we'll see more of the you've got your 5 guys and you roll with it till something happens, somebody gets hurt. But yeah, maybe later in the year if somebody goes down or somebody's just really not playing well, maybe Juan Gaston could be the offensive lineman to watch.
And did you say so? Taylor, even though he is one of the 5 stars and the only 5-star true freshman, do you think he has the best chance of contributing? Do you think that's possible for him to contribute this season?
Yeah, sure. I think it's possible for sure. I mean, they're both him and CJ Wiley are a little different. Talon is more like a well-rounded kind of like a jack of all trades, just does everything really well. CJ is more the big-bodied type, which is why they've got him listed at X there. Colby Young is 6'3", 215. Noah Thomas is probably 6'4", 210. So that's kind of the ballpark CJ Wiley's playing in. But they're both, extremely, extremely talented guys. Again, I think if we're looking just at guys Georgia's signed out of high school in the last couple classes, I think those 2 are probably up there in terms of the most talented over the past 2 or 3 years.
Okay. Now, I did notice, just taking, again, I'm only looking at this depth chart, and that's 5 deep, but I do not see a freshman. And you just talked
So
about them boosting up their running back game. So I'm assuming they've got some freshmen
yeah,
now that we
yeah,
need to
Bo
keep an eye on.
Walker, great running back name, Bo Walker, first of all. But yeah, a guy from Georgia that they signed, and actually, his recruitment was kind of under the radar because he committed early and didn't really flirt with a lot of other schools. And then his senior year, he had like an eligibility thing, so it took him a while to get on the field. But he's really good. He's like a 5'9", 200-pound bowling ball type, and we've heard a lot of good things about him, even going back to the spring. Now, again, that's a deep depth chart. I mean, Nate Frazier is really good. They got Josh
Oh,
Frazier
yeah.
transfer from Illinois. Roderick Robinson, he's got to stay healthy, but he's really good. Cash Jones has been there forever, and Chauncey Bowens looked good in the spring game. But again, running back is a position where that room can get really thin in a hurry with injuries and stuff. And like I said before we went on the air, there hadn't been any injuries really in fall camp yet, but they're I think 4 practices in, so
Yeah.
plenty of time there. So yeah, he's a guy who I think could work his way into getting some carries later in the year as well.
Okay, and on a defense, 3 of the 5 stars, you've got Griffin, Gibson, and Walker. And would we be looking at those 3 as well regarding players who might be able to contribute?
I would be surprised to see Zayden Walker this year, only because that room is so deep in front of him. I mean, you've got 4 guys with CJ Allen, Raylan Wilson, Chris Cole, and Justin Williams who are really, really, really good. And then you add in Terrell Foster, who is a walk-on, but has been around a long time, and the coaches really love him. So Zayden's really good. Don't get me, and so is AJ Crua. But when you look at Griffin and Gibson, I think we see those guys this year only because Georgia's got to figure out some way to get back to that game-wrecking presence up front. Elijah Griffin, 5-star consensus top 10 guy. He's a perfect 3 technique for this defense. And actually, back in the spring, we were asking guys, guys go to the combine and pro day and all that stuff. And I believe it was Warren Brinson was like, yeah, Elijah Griffin's the next Jalen Carter. And everybody's like, whoa. So I'm sure Kirby Smart probably didn't love that type of praise getting thrown out there. But a lot of big expectations on him. And then Isaiah Gibson, same thing. The edge outside linebacker group, it's kind of like somebody's got to step up. There's a lot of reps there to take because Damon Wilson transferred out and Chaz Chambliss is gone and Samuel Mpemba transferred out. So that room got hit pretty hard by attrition in the offseason. So, yeah, I think Gibson works his way into the rotation at some point. I think Elijah Griffin works his way into the rotation pretty early, personally.
Okay.
I think by the end of the year, we'll see plenty of both of those two.
Any players in the secondary? Any of those freshmen?
I don't think so. They brought in, one, the secondary. You look at there's talent guys in front of them, and they brought in 3 safety/star transfers who are probably ahead of those guys just because they played college football, right? You got Miami, USC, and UAB with those 3 guys. So they're very good. Todd Robinson's a really cool story because he was originally recruited as a running back, played quarterback for his high school team, didn't even play DB, just played quarterback. And Georgia got in there with an evaluation and landed him. But no, those guys are good. I just think it's going to take a year for them to, because again, after this year, like I think Ja'Cory Thomas will be gone, Dalen Everett will be gone, Janelle Aguero could possibly be off to the NFL, and same with Daniel Harris. So I think that room will shake up some after this season, and then next year you can see a lot of these guys kind of jockeying for time. But I think, and listen, there's always the chance to break through on special teams, which is where Kirby Smart likes to see these guys kind of cut their teeth anyway.
Okay, let's talk about the transfers. We'll stay on defense. And Badozi seems to be the biggest name we're hearing, the kid from Army. And this kid, let's see, he had a little over 6 sacks last year. How do they want to use him? What are they looking at him? Are they looking for additional pass rush? Are they looking for what are they looking for?
Yeah, I think it's pass rush and just kind of explosion and bend coming around the edge. We saw him at practice the other day, and his frame reminds me a little of Nolan Smith. Like he's not super tall, and it was a little far away, so it might not be fair to him, but didn't seem especially really like long either. But you can see how he could get around the edge really fast. Yeah, I mean 6'3", so not crazy length or anything,
Sure.
but
Well, it's
and
Army.
that, and coming from Army, he's going to be disciplined and
Oh
all that
yeah.
kind of stuff. So he's got that going for him. But yeah, there's been a lot of really positive things that we've heard about him. I mean, ever since he got in Athens. So that's a guy, again, they needed to address the pass rush.
Yeah.
They got to get better at getting after, sacking the quarterback, pressuring the quarterback, whatever. So, yeah, that's a big spot to fill. And then behind him, like Gabe Harris, kind of is an outside linebacker, defensive end.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of good things about him.
He's got a lot of potential. He's been dinged up a little bit in his career. Quintavious Johnson is a guy stepping into a bigger role for the first time. Chris Jones is I'm moving my cursor around like anybody can see it other than me. Chris Jones is a converted inside linebacker who they moved to edge this spring just because they needed bodies there, and he looks. I mean, he's up to probably 200. Yeah, I mean 230 might be even a little conservative on his weight. So. Yeah, they got to figure it out. And again, that's kind of what I mentioned with Gibson. Like there's a lot of reps there, a lot of, snaps to be taken. And, I think we're going to see some mixing and matching early in the season to kind of figure out what the best combination is among all those guys.
And I also noticed a few other guys here on the board, transfers, Branch and Maddox, the two DBs. Maddox actually – it looks like he was a little bit more productive, but that was UAB. Still, he had 44 tackles, 7 pass defense, and a pick 6 last year. So Harris, Branch, Maddox, are those guys for depth, or do they have any one of those guys have a chance to possibly start?
I think you'll see Ja'Cory Thomas start opposite KJ Bolden to start the year because he's a guy that's been at Georgia forever. It feels like, but yeah, I mean, I think it's depth, but I also think having that depth gives you options to be creative and get different bodies on the field. And if you want to, these guys can probably play over at nickel if Jonel Aguero Jonel Aguero's battled injuries at times throughout his career, so that's part of the reason you need a depth. But if you wanted to sub one of them in as a sub linebacker in a package, you could probably do that. Like I saw Zion Branch at practice, and he looked like jacked. Like I was like, who is this guy? And it was Zion Branch. So, there's again, it's versatility, it's depth, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, I know Branch and Harris are juniors, so they could be back next year and battling then.
Okay.
I mean, Maddox, I guess in theory could end up redshirting. So I don't know. It's depth for sure, and then exactly how they'll all be used, I think, is something you'll see kind of figured out throughout fall camp and through those first couple games into the season.
And then on offense, you do have Noah Thomas. He had a nice season last season for Texas A&M. And then Branch is the big name because he's electrifying in the return game. You would think a guy like that would be a little bit more explosive as far as his average. He's only got like a 10 average last year. Noah actually is the one that has I think a 4-yard average higher than Branch, and actually was a lot more productive last year in the passing game for A&M than Branch was for USC, even though again, it really doesn't matter. Different programs, different systems and such. And like a Branch really get the ball in his hands, anything can happen. And Josh McCray, boy, that was a big get too, because he's that perfect type of Illinois running back that they like to have there. Had a nice productive season for the Illini last year, picking up a bunch of touchdowns. He had 8 touchdowns. He had 10 touchdowns on the season for the Illini, and he gets to spell Nate Frazier, as you said, who looks like he's ready to take that next step.
Yeah, and I think he's a perfect complement to Nate Frazier because I think Nate Frazier is the guy you get him out in open space, you get him through the line, and he makes guys look silly on the open field. Whereas McCray, I mean, you look at it, 6'1", 235, like nobody wants to tackle that dude. And then you've got Roderick Robinson, who is probably 230, 235 too. So those guys, and then you've got Cash Jones, who is pretty much exclusively a third down pass catcher guy. So that's, I mean, again, you got to stay healthy, and that's a room where injuries can pile up quick, but that's a really good top four if they can stay healthy. And then again, Bo Walker's behind him, Chauncey Bowens, Dwight Phillips is a legit track star at running back who we saw him in a couple gadget rules last year. I think he scored a touchdown against Florida on like a jet sweep. So he's a guy that you could, slot in somewhere, where receiver, running back, H-back, whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think what this receiver room does, like not even necessarily the transfers, but there's so much versatility and different things you can do with this room. Like, there's a world where, and then if you throw the tight ends into this too, like, you've got Noah Thomas and Colby Young split out wide. And in one slot, you've got Zachariah Branch. And in the other slot, you've got Oscar Delp. Or in the other slot, you've got Dylan Bell. Or, you throw London Humphreys out there. He's got blazing speed that Georgia saw when he torched him at Vanderbilt a couple of years ago. Jacoby White is another guy that the staff is really high on. Shifty, but also can jump out of the gym. So there's just so many different things you can do with this group of receivers / tight ends. Like this is the deepest and most talented group of pass catchers I think Georgia's had in a while. And again, got to stay healthy, and you've got to protect Gunnar Stockton, and Gunnar Stockton has to get them the ball, right? But like a good group of receivers are going to win you a national championship by themselves. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential with this group, just with the amount of different things and formations and alignments and all that kind of stuff. I mean, and you could line up Dylan Bell at running back, insert back as if you want to, because that's something he's done in the past. So that's one more wrinkle you could throw in. So just stupid deep as far as I guess the skill players go.
Yeah, because everybody knows that, or most, especially if you're paying attention to the Georgia program last year, that they had serious issues with the drops. It just was not a good season last season there. Is there anybody coming back from that group that you think, still needs to do a better job, that there's another level that one of these receivers, these holdovers need to take? Anyone specific?
Yeah, I'm curious what Dylan Bell ends up doing, because I think he got kind of pressed into and not to say a role he wasn't comfortable with, but maybe out of position a little bit last year. And I think it's almost like it sounds like I'm saying he can't be a number one receiver, and I don't think that's the case. But I think he's a guy that is better served being able to move around to different spots. And I think last year was more of a, hey, we're thin and we have nobody that can catch. Let's get you out there, and you've got to play on the outside all these snaps. And I think, again, he's a guy whose versatility is his biggest weapon. So put him outside, put him in the slot, put him at running back. You could have a wildcat package with him at quarterback if you wanted to. Like that's what he did in high school. So I think he will be more comfortable playing a bunch of different spots, which sounds like a weird thing to say. But I think with so many of these other weapons, he's a guy who can, I don't know, fly under the radar maybe a little bit. And but, I mean, he's really good. I mean, he was your contested catch guy a lot last year. So that's a guy I'm excited to see how he's utilized, because I think he can do a little bit of everything. It's how much do they actually throw on his plate? That's what I'm going to be interested in.
All right. Well, I mean, to have him out there and Branch at the same time then could give.
I mean, you could go, I could sit here and dream about this all day. You can have Thomas on one side, and then you go all speed on the other side with Humphreys and Branch with the tight end on the end of the line of scrimmage. Like there's endless ways you could do this. And I think you get so many different guys with so many different skill sets that there's really no limit to what you can dream up. And now, again, you got to execute, you got to catch, you got to block, whatever. But there's a lot of possibilities there for Mike Bobo for sure.
All right. Let's see. This was about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. So the one media viewing period, it was actually the first day of practice. McCray was out sick, but that's kind of was Where's Josh McRae at? He was sick. I'm assuming he's back at practice. I mean, that was Thursday. Today's Monday. So I am assuming he's back. But yeah, I don't. It's not a long-term thing from what we understand.
And like you were saying, yeah, nobody's really at this point in time banged up so much that there's an issue with any of these guys, including Josh, where they might be worried about missing opening day. Not that anybody really cares about opening day with Marshall, but that's just,
and that's the other thing. Like, you don't need to rush anybody back at this point in camp, especially because you've got you don't have an opener like Clemson or Oregon or some of these other ones they've had.
Yeah, that's true.
You've got Marshall and Austin Peay before. Now, again, you want to get these guys their feet wet and get things figured out before, so you can roll into Tennessee feeling good. But no reason to push anything a few days into camp.
All right, let's talk about potential breakout performers. And I think there's a lot of potential options here because of the talent that the team lost. Start on offense. Give me some players that you think could qualify there. I don't know whether or not you were kind of feeling that with Dylan Bale, but give me a player, a holdover, not a transfer or obviously a freshman, but somebody that you think might be able to take that next step.
Not a trick. I would go Colby Young just because he was off to, like, we've seen flashes of what he can be. And then there was injuries. Then he had his legal situation where he was out most, if not all of last year. I don't exactly 100% remember. But we've seen flashes of what he can be. He's huge. He can be the third down target, but he can also stretch the field as well. So that's a guy that, yeah, if we're talking breakouts, that would be a guy I would look at. And that's a guy who Gunnar Stockton is, again, he was a transfer, but he's been at Georgia for 2 years now, I think, which is crazy to think about. So, yeah, so that would be a guy.
Okay.
Roderick Robinson, like, again, he looks, he's like McRae, like he's huge and nobody wants to tackle him. He's just constantly been snake bit by injuries and like nagging foot things. And when you're a running back and B, a big running back at that, that's not good. So if he can stay healthy, he's a guy that I will be curious to see how much again, he's got all the talent in the world. It's just can he stay healthy? And then at tight end, I'm Jaden Riddell. Jaden Riddell, like, if you made a first team get off the bus team, like, Jaden Riddell's on it. Like, he is just shredded, looks like what a tight end should look like. Didn't play much last year because he had Delp and Lucky and Ben Urosic in front of him. But I think he's a guy that is going to hit that point, if he hasn't hit it already, where this kid's too talented to not work him into the tight end rotation somehow. So yeah, I'd keep an eye out on Jaden Riddell too.
All right. Defense, who can take that next step?
Joseph Jonah Ajonye, I believe he played as a true freshman against Clemson in the opener last year. And then he had a foot thing and missed most of the year. But he is another guy where you look at that guy, I'm like, yeah, that's what a defensive lineman probably ought to look like. I saw him at practice the other day, and I thought he, like, simultaneously was huge, but also looked like a linebacker, like an outside linebacker. Like, he has very kind of like reshaped his body since he's been on campus. So him and Jordan Hall, again, a guy who came as a common refrain. It sounds like ton of talent. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. And has battled some injuries. And I think he's a guy that Georgia really needs to step up and not to say he it's injuries, it happens, but a guy they need to be a breakout guy on that defensive line, because they got to get back to the Georgia standard of stopping the run and getting after the passer. And he's a guy that's got the talent to do it. Kristen Miller, like, it's hard to call him a breakout guy because he's been here forever, but he's the guy now. Same with Xavier McLeod. He was playing as well as any defensive lineman at the end of last year. You need him to continue stepping up. And I think the last one is Quintavious Johnson there at Jack behind Modozi. Georgia took him out of high school as a upside project. This guy, look at his measurements. He's 6'4", 255, played quarterback in high school. Which was, I saw it one night, and that was a sight to see.
I'm sure the defenders didn't appreciate that.
They did not appreciate that at all. So he's one that we've heard some good things about. He's kind of taking that next step, and I mean, again, that edge, somebody's got to play, and I think he's a guy who, I mean, he's been at Georgia longer than Modozi, which is obviously a good thing for him. So he's a guy we're going to see a lot of this year, and playing quarterback, he got a ton of athleticism. So
that's true.
He's another one of those guys to kind of keep an eye on the edge.
All right. Now, just going through, because again, there was a lot of talent that this team lost. They lost 4 offensive linemen, starters, 3 starting defensive linemen, including Michael Williams, and 3 starting defensive backs, including Malachi Starks. So that's a lot of talent that is now, most of it, heading to the NFL. So taking a look first, I tell you what, starting special teams, because nobody left, not those 2 kickers. This is as good as a kicker combo as there is nationally, with Thorson at punter and Woodring at kicker.
Yeah, fun fact: Georgia swept the preseason first team All SEC at on special teams, punter, kicker, long snapper, and I guess returner was the other one. So I mean, Branch is the one from a Georgia perspective we don't really know about yet because we haven't seen. But I mean, we've seen him at USC. He's absolutely electric, and that's something that Georgia hasn't necessarily had, is a true dynamic threat in the punt return game over the past few years. It doesn't seem like they've really gotten a whole lot out of that area. So now again, how do you weigh as a coach? Okay, I want this guy to return punts. I also don't want him to get hurt and hurt my health. So that's something you got to figure out too. But yeah, if he can give him something there, that would be huge. And then I mean, Woodring is solid. Thorson's solid. I believe Thorson is supposed to be back after he tore his ACL in the SEC championship. So I believe he's supposed to be ready to go.
Okay. So you haven't heard anything.
Miller stepped in and did a fine job in the Sugar Bowl. So if it takes him a couple weeks, there's a solid backup plan in place as well.
Okay. All right. Defensively, in that secondary, KJ Bolden, would he be the guy to watch? Everett at corner? Who would be the top couple of guys to keep an eye on?
Yeah, definitely those 2. Because I mean, Dalen Everett, again, another guy who feels like he's been around forever. I mean, this is his 3rd year as a starting corner, I guess, if my math is right. So he's got all the experience. He's long. I mean, he had 3 interceptions and a forced fumble and a fumble recovery in the 2 games against Texas last year, I think. So he was huge in those games, and he's gonna be the leader of that secondary. And Bolden as well. Like, he's a guy that I think has really stepped up, because Malachi Starks is gone, Dan Jackson's gone, Smile Mondon's gone at linebacker. So he knows he's got to step up and be the leader of the defense, one of the leaders anyway. And I think from all indications he has done that, and he's just ridiculously talented as well. I mean, to come in and start or pretty much start at safety from day one at Georgia just showed what Malachi Starks did, and he just went and was a first-round pick by the Ravens. So, definitely those 2 in the secondary. I mean, in the secondary, I mean, you've got Daniel Harris and Ellis Robinson jockeying for a position at the other corner spot, and both of those guys are really, really good. You know, DeMelo Jones, same thing. He's really good. So it will shock no one to know that Kirby Smart has got a ridiculously deep and talented secondary. But yeah, I think Everett and Bolden are the headliners for sure.
All right. Linebacker, that would be CJ Allen. Would he be the leader of that group?
Yeah, Allen and Wilson, for sure. I mean, those guys, they played a ton as freshmen 2 years ago just because of injuries. A guy I'm curious to see this year is Chris Cole, because we all saw what Jalen Walker did last year in terms of being an inside guy, rushing off the edge. And I think Chris Cole is that kind of athletic player. Is he going to be the first-round pick by the Falcons in a couple of years? I don't know. But I'm curious to see how they work his skill set in, and Justin Williams as well, because all these guys have kind of got different skill sets a little bit. So I think there's going to be some mixing and matching and figuring out who can play in situational packages. But I mean, that room, that top four there is just is stupidly. I mean, you're not going to find a top four group of inside linebackers that's better anywhere in college football. I mean, Justin Williams is a former 5-star, I think, number one linebacker in the country.
Wow.
And he's probably your number 4 linebacker. I mean, it's they're all going to play, but it's ridiculous. And then again, I mentioned Terrell Foster earlier, a walk-on who has been at Georgia forever, knows the system, and gets some run. So that room is just ridiculously deep. And that, again, no one's shocked to hear that when you're talking about Georgia.
And then up front, we mentioned Harris. You also threw in a couple players yourself, like Miller, but Harris, he's the kingpin up front.
Yeah, I think you look at these top three, these starters, like first snap of the year, it's going to be those 3 guys out there: Miller, Hall, and Harris. And those are the guys Georgia needs, man. I mean, it's that simple. Like, you got to have those guys. Like Kristen Miller has shown flashes. Jordan Hall has got all the talent, but he's been hurt. Gabe Harris has been banged up and behind some other guys. Like, I mean, Xavier McLeod, like I mentioned earlier, he was on fire at the end of last year. Nasir Johnson is a guy I kind of forget exists sometimes because he didn't play last year and didn't arrive till the summer. He's the guy the staff really liked coming out of high school. So there's a ton of talent there. It's just they got to find those guys. They got to figure out who it's going to be. And, by the end of the year, does this top 3 look the same? I don't know. Maybe, but maybe they figure out, okay, we need to get more snaps for Nasir John. I'm moving my cursor around, like drawing arrows and stuff, like anybody can see it. Maybe Joseph Jonah-Janye is a guy that needs to play more snaps as opposed to Gabe Harris. Like, there's so many different things that you could do with this group, kind of like the receivers. There's a lot of these guys that are very good and can play. Josh Horton is from a transfer from Miami, who's gotten some run. So, yeah, there's a lot of talent there. They just got to figure out what the best combination is. The first 2 games of the year give you a chance to do that.
Yep. But
then it's at Tennessee, an off week in Alabama. So you get the reprieve on the front end, but you pay you're going to need to figure it out because it's 2 tough tests.
Oh yeah. It's going to be really, as usual, a tough schedule in the SEC. Okay, so offensively, why do you think it might be different this year in the running game? And you mentioned it was disappointing. The offensive line was disappointing. I think it's interesting because of the fact there was so much talent.
Yeah.
And these guys got drafted pretty high, and a lot of good things about every one of those starters that are gone. So why do you think that happened? Why do you think there was a disconnect between the talent on the line and just not being able to get it done?
That's the $1 million question. That's going to be when they make the documentary about that team, that's going to be, because again, Tate Ratledge is phenomenal. Xavier Truss played 15 years of college football. Jared Wilson was great. It just never clicked. You can point fingers at leadership. There were injuries. There was all this stuff. At the bottom line, they weren't as good as they should have been just looking on paper. So go to this year, you can say, okay, it's kind of the reverse. This unit isn't necessarily as experienced, but maybe they gel better and play better. I think.
Yeah.
I think Micah Morris has played a lot of football. That's your grizzled better, and Ernest Green as well. The thing with Green is he's moving from left tackle to right tackle, and Monroe Freeling is taking over at left tackle. So again, it's a new starter technically, but both of those guys have played a lot of football, even not necessarily at that position / as a full-time starter. Drew Bobo is another question at center. He's taking over. He played a little bit last year, son of a coach, obviously, with his dad being the offensive coordinator. So, he's going to be a smart guy at center. I think the thing there is like last year, I think they felt, okay, it's not ideal, but if Jared Wilson gets hurt, we can get by with Drew Bobo. If Drew Bobo gets hurt, then it's kind of like, they brought in Walt Flynn as a freshman or as a transfer, from Central Florida, who, he hadn't been at Georgia that long. I mean, and he's He's not as big as some of the guys we've seen in the past. Malachi Tolliver is a redshirt freshman who hasn't played. Cortez Smith is a true freshman who hadn't played. So the center depth, and again, maybe I'm not privy to these things. I wish I was. Maybe the plan is okay. If it's a long-term thing with Bobo,
sure,
Micah Morris can play center. Maybe I don't know, or Daniel Calhoun can play center. And then you've got Calhoun, who was kind of staking his claim to the right guard spot in the spring. He missed a good chunk of spring due to injury. I still think he's going to be the starter come game one. And then you've got Michael Looney, Marcus Harrison, guys are high on. Jamal Merriweather has worked at guard as well. And then
do they have like a player on that line that you think is the most talented? Do they a couple of guys that could be high draft picks?
I mean, I think your best bet could be Monroe Freeling, just because he is more of he's very, very athletic at tackle. And we all know the NFL loves good athletic long tackles. And Daniel Calhoun is tremendously talented. I mean, if Georgia wasn't as deep as they were at guard last year, there's a good chance he plays as a true freshman at a lot of other places if Georgia didn't have 3 draft picks at guard ahead of him. Okay. So I think those two guys, but again, Micah Morris is a people mover, huge road grader guy at guard. He's really good. Ernest Green is very good. Ernest Green's been hurt. Monroe Freeling's been hurt. They did have injuries last year. We kind of glazed over that, but yeah, Green had a shoulder. Freeling had stuff. Tate Ratledge had, I believe, a foot maybe, or I don't remember, but so they got to stay healthy, but you could say that about every group, right? But again, is this group, looking at that starting 5, are they more talented than last year? Are they going to have the same amount of draft picks? Probably not. But no, that didn't mean anything for the group last year. No. So we shall see.
How much more can we expect from Oscar Delp?
I think you can expect plenty. I think at this point, even Kirby Smart said it the other day, what can Oscar Delp's role be in this offense? He's the guy that loves to block. So he's capable in the passing game, but I think, just because he's number 1 on the depth chart here, I don't necessarily think that means he leads the tight ends and catches.
Okay.
He's a weapon for sure. I'm not saying that he's just a glorified lineman, but we've seen a lot of Lawson Lucky in the passing game. I talked about Jaden Riddell earlier.
Okay.
Elias, especially Ethan Barber, both of those guys are really good freshmen. I think Barber is probably more polished as a freshman in terms of a guy who could actually see the field. So again, Delp is really good. And he caught 2 touchdowns against Tennessee. He has proven himself in these big moments. But as far as a passing threat, I think it might even be Lucky and Riddell maybe end up with more catches than him by the end of the year.
And if anything were to happen to Gunner, is there because I see 3 freshmen there. So
yeah, it's Puglisi, it's Brian Puglisi, because it's a guy who, he's got a ton of talent. He's a redshirt freshman, so we got to Georgia last winter. Then he missed last spring due to a stress fracture in his knee or something. So he hasn't played a lot of football. But yeah, I think if something were to happen to Gunner, you roll with Puglisi and just hope he kind of learns on the fly. Gunner Stockton, this is his 4th year at Georgia, right? It's not really a fair fight in terms of experience, but
sure.
But yeah, you roll with Puglisi and kind of hope for the best, because Millender is a true freshman, and so was Montgomery. And Montgomery tore his ACL his senior year of high school and has only just recently been fully cleared. So
okay,
yeah, the thought of something happening to Gunner is not a good one for Georgia fans. Puglisi's got a ton of talent. Again, he hasn't played, and he's coming from, he's from Massachusetts. He played at a private school in Connecticut, so there's an adjustment coming to the SEC anyway, right? And then you miss your first spring and didn't. His next game snap will be his first. So Yeah, it's not like last year again where Carson Beck gets hurt. Okay, you've got a guy like Gunner who's
Yeah.
been around forever.
It's hard nowadays to have those good backups hanging around, especially if they're veterans.
And I think, last year you saw Georgia go get Jaden Rashada out of the transfer portal. And it's like, okay, I mean, again, he wasn't the backup, but he was another option. Whereas this year, and I think Georgia kind of kicked the tires on some guys, some quarterbacks in the portal, but quarterbacks want to go play, right? Like nobody wants to come be a backup.
Nope.
So it's like Kirby Smart's thing. He's, I want to have 4 scholarship quarterbacks. And I just don't, in this era of college football, I don't think that's a realistic thing. I mean, it sounds great, but quarterbacks want to go play. Like they don't want to sit here forever. I mean, it sounds stupid to say that because Gunner's done it and then Carson Beck did it before him, but it's hard to keep those guys on the roster that long.
Do you think that one of these 3 freshmen, like if you had a bet that in 2027 that one of these 3 freshmen will be starting for Georgia, or you think it'll be another, I don't know who the freshman is coming in next year, you do, or that maybe it's a transfer? Who would you bet that would be the quarterback in 2027?
I would say it's probably either Puglisi. I would say Puglisi just because he's got a ton of talent. And again, he's like, there's a world where he follows the Gunner path and Gunner starts this year and he doesn't love the NFL draft feedback and he comes back next year. And then 27, then it's Ryan Puglisi who's in his 4th year on campus. And we just do this whole thing over again.
Yep.
I think he might have, and their quarterback signee, or he's not signed yet, but commit in this class is Jared Curtis, who is a 5-star guy.
Okay.
From Nashville. But he plays very small school, private school ball. So that's another, you got to adjust coming to the SEC. So he's not going to be a guy that is ready to play as a true freshman, no matter what. So, but yeah, I think Puglisi is just, he's got the arm talent. He's got, he's a baseball player from high school. So he's got athleticism. He can move. But yeah, I don't necessarily see Kirby Smart being I have a hard time envisioning a future where he brings in a transfer guy to start for a year because I think he is going to be that guy who I want the guy who's been in our system who
that's good. Yeah.
Has learned it. And
I like that.
Could that change at some point? Like, sure. If Gunner leaves after this year and he doesn't feel Puglisi and Montgomery and Millender and Curtis are ready, yeah, sure, you could go get a guy. But I think he's going to be, unless we absolutely have no choice, I think he's going to be the guy who wants the guy that's been in his system for a while.
Okay, let's wrap up with taking a look at the schedule. We mentioned Marshall, and then you got Austin Peay. So this is like the exhibition season, the preseason for Georgia, and then they ramp it up with the road game against Tennessee. So what do you think about the schedule? What are the highs and lows of the schedule as we roll through here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mentioned kind of at the top, like Georgia's one of these teams that, I think they can win a national championship, but they got to prove it to me. Like going into last year, obviously it didn't work out for Georgia, but I was like, okay, this team has what it takes to win a championship. I think this team does, but I need to see it. And I think we'll know a lot more after those first 2 SEC games. If they beat Tennessee and beat Alabama and do it, and not necessarily convincingly, but look good while doing so, then it's like, okay, this team can take off from there. If they squeak by Tennessee and lose by 10 to Alabama at home, then it's like, okay, well, maybe they need to recalibrate expectations. So that's huge. And then at Auburn is that's always just a weird game because Jordan Hare is built on an Indian burial ground or whatever. I think you flip it from last year, right? So your toughest opponents are at home. Alabama's at home. Texas is at home. I would probably put Ole Miss as that 3rd toughest opponent. That's at home. Florida and Jacksonville. I mean, I still think Georgia's got the talent edge on Florida. So Florida's obviously getting there. But again, DJ Lagway, all these injury concerns, like is DJ Lagway your starter by the time the 7th or 8th game of the season comes around?
Oh, if he's not, they're in big trouble.
Yeah. So I think the schedule works out pretty good. You get a bye before Alabama. You get a bye before bye before Florida, as always. So yeah, and I think they played Georgia Tech on Black Friday again, which if they're in a position to make the SEC championship, it's one more day of rest, assuming it doesn't go to 8 overtimes again, which that
Yeah.
would be the parlay of the century if you bet on that. So, I mean, yeah, if we're looking at the win total here, I'd go over 9.5 just because I think this is a team that is in position to get better as the season goes along. And last year's team didn't do that. We saw that in 2023, kind of, and last year we didn't see it. I think this year the team will get better as the year goes along. So by the time they get to Texas, to Ole Miss, to Florida, I think they'll be getting better. And you've got your toughest test at home. So I don't see Georgia losing. I mean, again, there is absolutely a scenario where it happens, but I think they get by Tennessee and Knoxville, and I think they've got enough to get by Auburn at Jordan Hare. So then it's like, okay, you go, even if you go 1-2 against those big three at home, then
Sure.
you're 10-2 and probably in the playoffs. So yeah, I'd go over 9.5. But yeah, it's again, I think they've got what it takes, but I need them to validate that opinion before I really switch from pencil to pen on that
Yeah,
one.
I hear you. It's a very interesting year, I think, for Georgia because of the fact that we're really starting to get to that point now where, uh, with all the transfers and everybody, you can't build these 3 deep, 4 or 5 star
Mhm.
teams anymore. You just can't do it. And so when you have injuries, things of that nature, then you're going to rely on other players that you normally wouldn't have to rely on. You'd be bringing in your next wave of superstars. You don't have that anymore.
Mhm.
So I think it's a very interesting time that, not to say that, I mean, obviously what happened with Alabama, they lost Saban. So you can't really, who knows what would have happened with them but again, Saban's gone and it is what it is. So, and as we talked about, there's so much competition in the SEC that nowadays, especially this season, I think last season was a little bit more like when it had those 3 lost teams. Again, I think there was reason where you looked at some of the games on the schedule where good teams were like Alabama getting blown out by what was it, Oklahoma or something like that. I forget who they were
Mhm.
blown out by,
Mhm.
and then losing to Vanderbilt, even though Vanderbilt was better, but still it's Vanderbilt. I don't know about that this year. I think I think that this year's better conference competition this year. So I think if you're a 3 loss team, and I think there might be several 2 and 3 loss teams this year out of the SEC because it's just so much competition.
Yeah, and you look at the top, these top 8 in the odds here. Texas, new quarterback. Ohio State, new quarterback. Georgia, pretty much new quarterback. Penn State, you return Drew Aller, but one, is anybody 100% sold on Drew Aller? And also, I mean, James Franklin, yeah, he
Well,
won a
he's the
couple
biggest
playoff
issue,
games.
James Franklin.
I
Yes,
mean,
that's
yeah,
the biggest.
you get credit for winning a playoff game, but
Yeah,
it was at home against the team you easily should have beaten, and then you beat Boise State. So
yeah,
Alabama, new quarterback. Oregon, new quarterback. Notre Dame, new quarterback.
that's
So,
it.
like, and then the teams like that have got the top quarterbacks, like LSU. Okay, LSU's got Garrett Nussmeier. Great. Are they as deep and talented as probably Texas and Georgia? Like, probably not. Like, I think Clemson is the closest. Like, they've got the quarterback and they've got the talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And they play in a conference where they're still, I don't know what their schedule is off the top of my head, but they're in a conference where, especially if they beat LSU week 1, you're looking pretty good if you're Clemson. So yeah, it's weird. It's a weird, like, again, the teams with the best quarterbacks aren't necessarily the best teams 1
That's
through 4
true,
core,
and
right?
that's what makes it interesting
So we'll
because
see. I
that's all
mean,
you have to
again,
do is have one of those great games by a quarterback, and you
yeah.
can get
I
upset.
mean, you think back to Clemson in 21 where DJ Uiagalelei had those great games in 2020, and you're like, okay, Clemson's going to move on from Trevor
Oh
Lawrence.
yeah,
They're good to go.
yeah,
And then it never really clicked.
yeah,
And does that happen at Ohio State or Alabama or
yeah.
or
Exactly.
Texas with Arch? I mean, nobody knows. Like, we
Nobody
think we
knows.
know. We think we know Arch is going to be good and Julian Saban's going to be good, and but we don't know.
Nope.
So there's simultaneously, again, like, there's the unknowns, but there's also, like, yeah, you think Georgia's going to be fine, you think Ohio State's going to be fine. So it's going to be interesting. Like, it's a good way to wrap
it's going to be
it up.
fun. Yeah.
I can't wait for week one, because you get Texas, Ohio State, you get Alabama, Florida State.
Notre Dame takes on Miami is nice.
Notre Dame, Miami, yeah,
SEC
the
game,
hate watch of the century for Georgia fans. So, I mean, who they said in SEC, who's to say Carson Beck doesn't get back to 23 form and Miami goes?
You
well,
don't. Yeah,
right?
he could.
You don't know. So,
yeah.
It's going to be awesome, man. College football is always awesome, but it's so wide open, and it's up for the taking this year, I think, especially with the 12-team playoff, how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I can go. The only two teams that I don't have a lot of faith on doing anything interesting are the two bottom teams. Other than that, and that's not even, and of course, I still have a lot of respect for Stoops and Shapen if he's healthy. Maybe Mississippi State, wins a few more games, but other than that, in any of these teams, even I think Missouri is going to be better than people think. I think Arkansas has got Petrino guiding that young quarterback for a second season, so their offense is going to be fine. And I think Vanderbilt is still going to be. I don't know why Vanderbilt's win total is 5.5. I know it's probably because of the schedule. They have a very tough schedule, but how do you win 7 games last year? You come back with a better team this year, and you got 5.5 on the win total. So this is a stacked. Oklahoma finally might have a quarterback. Auburn might finally have a quarterback. So this entire conference is just going to be loaded from week to week when you play these teams. There's just no weeks. I mean, and I know they've said this stuff in the past, but I've never seen it this deep and this good before.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk yourself into a lot in this league this year. Like, you can, but then again, you can flip it. Like, okay, does Austin Simmons tank at Ole Miss? Does the Tennessee thing turn into a train wreck? Like, and then somebody's got to, how do the standings shake out from there? It's going to be just, it's going to be fascinating. I think
that's the fun part of it. Yep.
The way to really put it.
That's it. So again, we're not going to really find out about Georgia for real until Tennessee. So we've got a little bit of time. And then maybe when we get the opportunity to finally talk during the season, maybe it'll be before the Alabama game, because that obviously will be a pretty huge one. That one will be on September 27th. It'll be a night game in Athens, so you know how huge the atmosphere is going to be. And I've got links in the description. Of course, you can check out everything going on following Jed with whether especially recruiting. You can check that out. And by the way, do you have as far as podcasting? What are you doing with that?
Not really. I've got a face for not this, as my mother always said. So.
Oh, why do you say that? We'll put you on our network. We'll give you a show.
But no, yeah, it's a lot of great stuff over at again, like you said, we merged with On3, so we got a deal where if you sign up, it's $1 for your first week. You get a free subscription to The Athletic for a year, which is cool. Like I got on that. That's awesome. So yeah, and you can read all the other site sports. Like that's what I do on Saturday is I get home and I go see which boards are melting down because their team lost. That's my Saturday bedtime tradition on Saturday. So yeah, it's great. You've got great stuff going on over there, especially with the season coming up. Practice has started and press conferences have started. So exciting times over at UGA Sports for sure.
Jed, appreciate it. I look forward to talking to you during the season.
Absolutely. Anytime.